So it's been a year since the big outrage over your comments about vaccines, where you talked about your experience of having pericarditis. Let's talk about the experience first. What did you go through?
Well, I'm still going through it, to be honest with you. I haven't fully recovered. It's been a year and a half, I think, now. I'm kind of at the point now where I can do most things, but if I try and do cardio or exercise, for example, I get a huge relapse in my symptoms.
Okay, so what were the symptoms at their worst?
Well, at their worst, it kind of went through different phases. So I couldn't stand up for more than 5 minutes. Mm. I couldn't walk more than 100 metres without getting like insane palpitations that felt like I was getting struck by lightning and I was having a heart attack. I basically couldn't do anything. I could just sit at home and feel like I was having a heart attack 24/7. I couldn't walk upstairs. I couldn't do anything.
Okay, so a month after getting the vaccine, you actually got COVID. Did that make the symptoms worse?
Yeah, it did. My heart stuff got a little bit worse, the pressure, and then I had it felt like someone scratching my heart with a toothpick or something. Ooh. That scratch turned into from a toothpick to a needle. It was like a sharp, stingy scratch. And by this stage, people were talking about heart stuff. In the early days, it was like blood clots.
PTS.
Yeah, so I was like, I didn't know anything about the heart stuff. By this stage, though, people were talking about it and the heart stuff had got worse, and I'd been playing it off as, maybe it's my ribs from boxing, or maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So I went to a cardiologist. First cardiologist told me to take another vaccine. So then I went to another cardiologist who said, yeah, I'm pretty sure you got pericarditis. We're seeing heaps of it. But he also didn't give me much help in terms of information and treatment and everything. So eventually I found another cardiologist who was really good, gave me a lot of information, put me on the traditional kind of protocol, which is colchicine and these other anti-inflammatories to get the inflammation down.
And officially gave you the diagnosis?
Yeah, and gave me the diagnosis of pericarditis.
Okay, so let's talk about the post that got you the big backlash. Thoughts go out to everyone caught up in this wave of myocarditis, pericarditis from vaccines and from COVID. It's a nightmare and it's destroying people's lives. Hashtag COVID-19, hashtag no vaccine mandates. So tell us about what made you want to say that. I imagine you knew it would create a bit of backlash, but you felt it was important to say.
Yeah, I thought it was really important to say. I'd been going through what I'd been going through, and the whole time I'm sitting there thinking I'm the super unlucky guy, the 1 in a million person who got a vaccine injury, because that's what I was told. My GP told me when I went to speak to him before I got the vaccine, he told me 1 in a million chance. It's so rare, it's never going to happen. So I was thinking it was really rare, and I just met another guy at a wellness centre that I was getting some treatment and stuff at. Who had the same issues as me, actually much worse. And then he put me into some of the online communities of other injured people. And all of a sudden I was like, there are thousands of people here and we all have the exact same story of being gaslit by the medical institution, telling us that there's nothing wrong with this, it's just anxiety, not being able to speak about it and not getting any help at all. I'd also just spoken to my cardiologist who basically told me 50% of his patients were now under 40 with pericarditis, which is huge. And he was also telling me that when he gets a wave of COVID, he gets a wave of new patients. If there's a vaccine rollout, he gets a wave of new patients.
So was the word wave, because that's probably one of the controversial parts of the post, is how you define a wave, what data goes into that definition. Is that the language the cardiologist was using?
That's the way I was definitely reading it. If you're getting a heap of new patients every time, you can call it a wave, you can call it a bag, or you can call it whatever you want.
Okay, so what did you make of the backlash you got? Obviously, one of the most noticeable parts was the pedestrian article. Scott Marsh has suddenly pivoted to posting questionable vaccine tanks. What did it feel like to read that?
It was really horrible because, I was in a horrible place. I felt like I was dying. Every day I felt like I was having a heart attack. I couldn't walk upstairs, couldn't walk downstairs. I couldn't really do anything. And it was horrible because you got people who, I saw people in the comments there that have followed my work for years that have been really supportive. Pedestrian's one of those as well. They've been really supportive of my work, basically turning on me because I've got sick. And I'm trying to, just offer support to other people in my situation. That was the point of the post was, hey, if you're out there and you're sick, I'm with you. You can't speak to anyone else. And I got about half a dozen people reach out to me privately who were in my sphere, like people I knew and some close friends, that also had issues that they weren't speaking about that I had no idea about. Particularly a couple of artists, exactly the same thing. They've been going through it for a year and they're too scared to talk about it online because of backlash and because of the amount of censorship on social media. Like, you will get shadow banned and you will lose followers and reach and all the rest of it if you talk about it.
Do you think things have changed now? It's a year on. Do you think it's more acceptable to raise these questions and there's, less public backlash and slamming for anyone that does?
Yeah, well, there's just so much more information available now. Everyone I speak to has a story about a family member or a friend.
And so the TGA data has revealed that 14 people have died related to vaccine injury, one of them from myocarditis. What does that say to you about the level of, serious harm from the vaccine?
Well, that's 14 people that shouldn't have died, but it's also where they're getting their data.
So you believe the TGA data is a massive underrepresentation of the real harm?
I don't know because I haven't dived into it and I'm obviously not a doctor, I paint pictures for a living. I know that there are thousands of people that are injured just within people that are within reach of me.